Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session is about the Creole continuum. And I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would be able to understand the concept and you would also know how does it operate. Well, my dear students, the boundaries between pidgins and creoles cannot be defined purely in terms of linguistic items, that these are the linguistic items that make it a pidgin or a creole, and these are the items that make them different from the other standardized language varieties. Some languages such as Talk Pisin and West African Pidgin English, they are spoken so widely in West Africa, that they exist in both the forms. They exist in the form of pidgins and creole forms as well. They are spoken by people out of necessity where they are unable to communicate with each other, whereas there are places where these varieties of this Talk Pisin English, they are taken up as creoles, where the new generations or the children of people who were using it as pidgin now have taken it up as their mother tongue, so it has become their first language. So there are then, as a result of that, there are then different levels of grammatical and structural changes in these languages, and different kinds of stability these languages show, these varieties show. A language that would be only used as a pidgin would have a different kind of stability. Language that becomes creole would, of course, be more stable when it comes to the use of different structures or linguistic items comes to that particular creole. Creolization can take place at any time point during the pidgin's life cycle. There is no predictable or determined or fixed time point where we would say that a pidgin changes into a creole. The possibility of this stage, it ranges from a jargon to an expanded jargon. It can be just a jargon that is a collection of a few words that people use for communication, and then it can expand over the times, that it can become a huge fund of jargon, and it can have a very, very stable structure as well. Just for your clarity, to add to this, I would say when I talk about a jargon, it's a speech variety with a minimal linguistic system and great individual variation used for communicating in limited situations where no other means of communication, no other linguistic means of communication are available. I would like to explain to you this through a diagram as well. Well, my dear students, if you look at the screen, you can see there are possibly 3 routes for the process of what we call creolization. If you look at the screen, on the left side, type 1, in the center, type 2, and here on the rightmost side, type 3 is given. We would look at each of these processes one by one. When we look at the first type of processes of creolization, what has happened? From a jargon, a creole is created directly. Now, if you remember, what is a jargon? Jargon is a small set of vocabulary items, lexical items, that is created out of necessity to communicate. So, directly from that, a creole is created, which means that the language that is now used by the next generation as their first language or mother tongue. An example is given here at the bottom of this. West Indian English Creole is an example of that. With this, we come to this, that is type 2. If you look at type 2, what you need to notice is, it also started as a same process, that is as a jargon. What is a jargon? A small number of vocabulary, but it did not develop directly, into creole. On its way, it was stabilized as a pidgin. Pidgin languages are not only sets of small collections of vocabulary, they have their own structures. They have their own syntax, though it is very, very simple structure. So, from a stabilized pidgin, then it developed into a creole, and at the bottom, you can see, an example. The example is of Torres Straits Creole. And the third type develops further through different stagings. The first stage again is the same, started as a small collection of vocabulary, that is jargon, then stabilized into a stabilized pidgin. This stabilized pidgin further developed, it further grew, and thus became an expanded pidgin. So, in this case, in this type, the steps are more. And, finally, after passing through these 3 stages, on the 4th stage, finally, it became a creole. And if you look at the bottom, you can see an example. That is New Guinea talk Pisin that went through these all stages before it established itself as a creole. Well, my dear students, once creolization has occurred, the evolution stages or changes that take place thereafter, after that, may make it impossible to identify a prior creole or a pidgin stage. Now the nature of changes starts to be different. The example is of Black English in the United States, where a variety that is in the later stages of the processes of decreolization. Now it is becoming more like the standard English. Variety, it is taking a proper form of a language in itself. The processes of decreolization, when they take place, changes which bring a creole closer to its super straight language, this is what happens. So, for example, if a jargon and then a pidgin and then a creole, if they are based on one stronger language, the vocabulary and the syntax comes from this particular language. For example, from English in a particular case. Later on in the process of decreolization, what would happen? This creole would completely take the form and shape of that language from where, in this case English, from where most of the lexical items and structures are borrowed. So on the creole continuum, this is how different stages of this progress and development of from pidgins to creoles happen and take place.